Hello, welcome on in everybody. Today I've got for you my Ice Gauntlet and Rapier PvP build for New World, and this is a fantastic build for pretty much every form of PvP. The Ice Gauntlet provides us with excellent control over the battlefield, allowing us to immobilize and snare tons of opponents, and then we mix that with the high damage of the Rapier and the ability for it to get some crazy backstab combos. And yeah, not only do we have a build that can really hold people in place, but we can really punish them for falling in our trap. If you guys want a written guide to this build, you can find it on my website, pvpnewworld.com. There's also a link to the written guide down in the description for you guys too. And finally, this build was put together in the open beta, meaning that we didn't make it to endgame with the build. But that being said, the game is just coming out around the corner. Everybody's going to be starting out, so this is a great build for you guys to get into PvP and have something pretty strong to start off with at the beginning of the game. Alright, so let's take a look at that build. So to start off, we have fully stacked intelligence for this build. We are aiming to do as much damage as possible. You don't, however, have to stack as much intelligence as I have here. If you want to get access to the first Constitution potion upgrade, you can definitely put a few points here too, but it's really up to the user based on how much damage you want to do versus how much health you have. You won't see diminishing returns in your attributes until you get past 100 points. So for early game, it's not a big deal if you just want to stack your offensive attribute of choice. We get a little bit of a constitution bonus from our gear. This is really nice because, well, hit points is going to help us stay alive in PvP. We're in full light armor, so we're pretty squishy, and that's another reason why I said if you want to put points in constitution, you definitely can to give yourself a little bit more durability and healing power. The only jump points really worth mentioning are going to be the 10% damage to light and heavy magic attacks, kind of nice for our Frost Gauntlet. If you can get to the 100 intelligence, 10% critical hit damage is really nice for both our Rapier and our Frost Gauntlet. Rapier especially because we can do a really good job backstabbing with our flesh as well as comboing with our Ice Gauntlet. And Constitution, having the first upgrade for the consumables, always great. And the second upgrade, I think, becomes less important because we have a very low physical armor value, so you're not going to get as much out of this. In short, for early game, I think you want to aim for 100 plus intelligence and 50 constitution or so. Now let's take a look at the gear we're using on this setup. I've got the Covenant faction gear, the level 15 stuff that you buy with tokens. This beta, though, this gear became a lot more expensive to buy with your tokens. So if you're going to be grinding up level 15 gear for very early game PvP, I would highly recommend you get your hands on the weapons first and then start grabbing the gear pieces afterwards. As you can see, I wasn't able to get my last two pieces of gear, but it wasn't such a big deal because we do have some okay options here that we just got as random drops. Definitely not as good as if we had the Covenant piece from the vendor, but I didn't really want to go and grind any more tokens because the beta was only going to be 4 days long, so I didn't end up upgrading these. Ideally, though, get yourself the full set if you can. And then for the necklace, I've went with the Tribal Loyalty Charm. You get this for completing one of the main story quests, and you get it very early in the game, a nice hit point boost, just a fantastic early trinket, especially for PvP. And then the weapons, of course, we got from the vendor, like I mentioned. And these are really nice because they're going to have a great power level. On top of it, they have an enchantment slot, so you can put a gem on them. I didn't end up enchanting the Ice Gauntlet because it already deals elemental damage, which will scale from our intelligence. The Rapier, however, actually gets a nice damage boost if we put any elemental or magical damage enchant on it. So I've gone with the Arcane enchant here, mostly because the Sapphire was the only gem that I found with the few iron that I mined, but Empowered is actually, I think, the choice to go for. From my testing, I found the Empowered enchant actually scaled better than the other elemental counterparts. Now, I'm not sure if that stayed this patch. That was in last beta that I tested that. I don't have access to the gems this patch to test it, but pretty much whatever gem you can get that scales off intelligence you want to put here. And don't fret too much if it's not the best one for early game, because it is just that early game, and you'll find yourself better things as you continue to play. Now, of course, we got to take a look at the consumables we're using on this build. We detailed this in my build guide for how to set up a character by level 15 for PvP. We got the Weak Health Potion as our potion of choice. We can definitely upgrade this to something better if I collected a bit more Life Bloom, but I was putting that all into my Regeneration Potion, so the Weak Health Potion was just the best heal, I guess, that I could use right now. Having a better potion definitely helps. If you want to buy it from the vendor, that's an option too. The travel ration, you definitely want to have a piece of food that you can eat. You can eat food throughout the course of combat and you'll regen health after eating it for 20 seconds. If you get attacked though, the regen will stop. So you can actually use it in a fight if you're dodging in line of sighting your opponents to quickly regen some health in a rather safe location. Definitely useful to have on your bar while you're fighting. And then, of course, that regeneration potion, restore a small amount of health and mana while you're in combat. We are using mana with our Ice Gauntlet, so nice to get a little bit of sustain through that, but it's mostly here for that extra healing power. Yeah, can't go wrong with more healing in PvP. And the last one I want to mention is we have the Energizing Travel Ration. This is a buff that will give you a little bit of additional mana regen for 25 minutes. You don't have to actively eat this one while you're in combat, but if you die, you lose this buff. So you're going to have to eat it pretty much every death that you take. And I am in light armor. We're at that weight of 13 or lower for light this patch. It was changed from 15 last patch. And the light armor, of course, so important for that roll. The roll is going to be great not only for avoiding attacks, but it helps us be more mobile than the other armor weights that are out there. And of course, for that 20% damage bonus. Now let's take a look at the weapon masteries that we're running for this build. Starting off on our Rapier, I invested really heavily into the Grace Tree. The first one that I leveled up was Evade. I think this is Rapier's best PvP skill all around. You can use it to attack, you can use it to defend, and you can use it to move around. I mean, it's got everything, and it's a very unique skill in the fact that you can actually cancel any animation with Evade. That is huge for making good engagements in PvP and just ending up on the better side of a mutual exchange. The next skill that I focused in after fully leveling up my Evade was Flesh, and Flesh is such a good skill for PvP as well. The Gap Closer is amazing for not only hunting down opponents, but escaping things like the Great Axe's Maelstrom pull. And when you finally fully upgrade Flesh, you get the ability to do a backstab light attack at any point during the Flesh. This is really nice because you can quickly position yourself behind an opponent, hit them with a guaranteed critical backstab, and then right away chain that into an Evade light attack. And you can essentially double stab people with this combo. Very, very strong for PvP to put some big burst into someone, especially if you can lock them down with the snares and immobilize from your Ice Gauntlet. And then after that, I invested in the Riposte skill. Riposte is really nice. I didn't use it with the last build that I played, and I kind of feel like I should have used Riposte because it is so good at countering an aggressive melee fighter. When you find yourself on the back foot and your opponent's about to put a lot of damage into you, Riposte can not only save you from that situation so you can escape, but you can even turn it around and respond with a powerful offensive combo of your own. But for this build, I think that the Riposte is definitely the flex spot, and if you wanted to use a different Rapier skill, you could use that instead here. Ideally, as we finish leveling up our Rapier, we definitely want that momentum passive and to finish our full tree here in Grace for Riposte. And then I think the best way to go would actually to be invest in a lot of the cooldown reduction. Critical strikes reduce cooldowns by 5%. This is huge because we can guarantee crits with our backstab. And then of course the refreshing strike for additional cooldown reduction. 10% additional damage against a target that's greater than 50% health is always really great for starting your combo too. Gaining stamina on hit is going to be really useful, especially since stamina regens slower now than it used to. And then finally the swiftness for the additional haste on hit is also nice. Additional mobility in PvP is great. Spacing is super important for this game, not only for defense but offense. You want to make sure that when you're attacking, you're actually landing your hits. So having that mobility just to keep you on top of your target is really nice, especially with the Rapier because the weapon doesn't have the most range on its light and heavies. Now let's take a look at the Ice Gauntlet setup for this build. The Ice Gauntlet, I find, has some really powerful abilities that I've invested into. The first one I want to talk about is Ice Shower. This is going to be a big line AoE kind of immobilize slash snare. Super fantastic for setting up our combo for this build. People oftentimes will chase you down and try to get on top of you if they're a melee fighter. You can put the Ice Shower between you and them, and if they run into it, they get immobilized in it, and you can follow that up with something like the Ice Storm on top of them, and that's just going to put a lot of damage on top of that opponent and put another snare on them, making it hard for them to escape and guaranteed to take a pretty beefy amount of damage from this combo. The fact that this is all in AoE too is fantastic for solo PvP, because if you find yourself outnumbered, this can help you really even the odds by locking down your opponents in this trap. And then finally, the last ability I'm using on the Ice Gauntlet is Entombed. This is an insanely good skill. Not only do you summon the ice around you and make yourself almost impossible to kill through the ice, your opponents can break the Entomb, but it has a lot of hit points and it takes quite a while for a player to beat through it. Usually it takes more time for them to break it than the ability will actually last for the 10 seconds. While you're in the Entombed, you regen your mana faster, so pretty much you don't need any sort of mana sustain for your Ice Gauntlet. As long as you have Entombed, you can enter it and get all of your mana back, break out of it, and then wait that 30-second cooldown, and you'll be able to just get all your mana back again. So the amount of sustain that this gives you for your just magical attacks is absolutely amazing, and it's worth the slot, I think, just for that alone. And finally, if you click your right mouse button after entering the Entomb, you can do an AoE knockback that will push opponents away from you. This is really nice because if you go into the Entomb and a bunch of players surround you, you might not be able to roll away from them. The knockback allows you to break a bit of space so you can at least escape from that tight situation. All around, a really fantastic skill, and all of these abilities on the Ice Gauntlet are very strong in their own regard. And then for the passives that we're using on the Ice Gauntlet, I've got Quick Frost for the increased speed while in a frosted area. Fantastic because we're slowing our opponent down and speeding us up, further increasing the gap between our speeds. And then we've also got Cold Reach for the increased damage if your opponent is further than 15 meters away with your light and heavy attacks. Passives I definitely want to invest in for this build if I level up the Gauntlet further would be something like Heavy Freeze, so that your heavy attacks will freeze a target that's in your Ice Storm or affected by Frostbite for 1 second. Really great for control. And then we've got Ultimate Chill. Ice abilities chill targets, increasing the ice damage by 35% for 3 seconds. A massive damage boost on this Ultimate Chill here. Unfortunately, I think we'd have to stack a ton of passives in this tree in order to get access to that. And then we get increased critical chance of hitting an enemy in a frosted area with Frostbite by 20%. Also a passive I would really want for this build. And yeah, I guess because I want to take Ultimate Chill, I would be forced into using all of the passives on this side in order to get enough points here to use Ultimate Chill. So we'd have to take these guys as well. Not as powerful passives, I think, as the ones that I kind of mentioned, but still definitely useful for getting a little bit of resource back. The mana sustain on Ice Gauntlet I don't think is the biggest deal, simply because we have Entomb. But there we go. Alright guys, let's get right into that PvP commentary. The first fight I have for you guys here is against a couple of higher level players, and I'd actually duked out a few times against these guys, and they killed me a few times, so this was the best of the fights against them. There you can see, we throw down the Ice Shower, trap him in the Immobilize, Ice Storm on top of him, the Rapier gap close through, and then the backstab to down him, and just trying to hit him with the Gauntlet there to finish him off. This enemy player here, you can see, is doing so much damage with his bow. We have to be really careful. I think he can kill us in 3 or 4 shots pretty easily. So we just kite back behind the tent here, and I just try to regen a little bit of health using my food. There's the Ice Shower. We managed to trap him in it. He goes for the gap closer, and he gap closes into the friendly player that's watching there, actually getting body blocked by that, so he gets trapped in the shower. We go for the gap close through him into the backstab, a few Rapier evade combos, and he goes down. And right away, you guys, I hope see the power of this build and the really nasty lockdown that we can get against an enemy player. Now, moving on to our next fight here, we've got a couple of purple players, and the first one here, I'm actually doing great damage to with my Ice Gauntlet, getting some nice crits on him, and he right away goes into his Entomb. We're left to deal with this Hatchet guy. He put some big damage into us. Unfortunately, I go for my flesh right into the guy's Ice Shower, and I immobilize myself and quickly just counter with the evade so they don't combo me out while I can't roll there. And they start putting in some nasty damage to me. This guy has a lot of damage with his projectiles too. We're both really squishy. He, unfortunately, is standing out in the open like that. He should have tried to take a little better terrain to have a tree or something that he could hide behind while he shot at me. We managed to take him down. Unfortunately, this guy has the Warhammer out there, so my riposte was a little bit early, and we don't end up getting the counter, and he just hits us after the riposte. And I try to go for the heavy there, quickly evade out of it, seeing him go into his Warhammer AoE kind of knockdown there. And then switch to the Ice Gauntlet as I just kite him out a little bit and feed him a few attacks. Throw my Ice Storm on the ground just to buy myself a little bit of space while he's in his Hatchet Fury here. And I want to go for the Ice Storm. Unfortunately, I'm out of mana, so we're forced to go into the Ice, or the Entomb, sorry. And just going to sit here to get all the mana back, and then we'll pop out right away. He goes for his stun. Most of the time, people do right after that. I didn't get the Ice Storm down in time there to get him with the Immobilize. Super unfortunate. He might actually have immunity to the Immobilize there because he just ran through it again, and we couldn't hold him still. So we actually weren't able to CC him at all with our trap there. So we're really forced to use our mobility and our terrain to try to evade this guy. It looks like he's in light armor too, so he can move fairly quickly as well. And that's going to make it very hard to deal with him and kite him. Thank goodness we've got the Ice Gauntlet, and we can just zone him out using our different AoE attacks. And worst case scenario, we can always go back into that Entomb. Looks like my mana's getting pretty low here. Just right into the Entomb to regen the mana. He's in his Berserker Fury right now on his Hatchet bar, so this is actually a great time for us to just stall a little bit with the Entomb. There you see he does have some sort of CC immunity. We don't manage to stun him with the knockback on the Entomb, but a fantastic Rapier combo through him there into the heavy attack, and we get a great riposte stun as he tries to go for the shootout. Hit him with a light attack into the evade light attack, and we managed to take that player down. That was a tricky guy to fight. He had a lot of damage, and it was all about making sure we could line up that good combo. Now for our next fight, we have got a couple purple players that are shooting me with some projectiles. I'm trying to get a little bit of cover behind these trees because I want to pull them into better terrain. Always terrain so important, especially with something like the Ice Gauntlet. Having a bit of terrain to LOS the ranged attack so you can trap people with your Ice Gauntlet, I think, is very important. There you see we throw the Immobilize down into our Ice Storm. We get a fantastic amount of damage on that one player there, and we go for the Rapier combo on him as well. Lots of pressure, but unfortunately the other player has taken some chunks out of me with his staff there. And then the Maelstrom comes down from the Great Axe. We're just out of range of it. We had our counter skills up though, so we were able to deal with it if we got trapped in it. And there's the Ice Shower, a great Immobilize on that player. We go for the Flesh, fantastic backstab on him, and he rolls out of it at the last moment there, but he's very low hit points. Another connection with our Ice Gauntlet. He goes for his Ice Storm. I'm missing my shots here. We finally connect that last one, and he goes down. And we're just going to turn around here and try to chug a potion, and before we know it, a green player came out of nowhere and just killed this purple player. And I fought this guy here, Philly G, a few times, so he's playing friendly here as we're out here by ourselves, and we're just going to be on our merry ways. And I got a couple more clips for you guys as we say goodbye. I had a lot of fun playing this build. I'm going to play it for the last day of the beta, see if I can get any more clips, but I'm very satisfied with the experience, and I cannot wait for the live launch of this game. Of course, if you guys want to check out a written guide to this build, go to pvpnewworld.com. Not only do I have guides for this build, but we've got a lot of information on New World in general, and there will be more build guides coming in the future too. Give me a follow on Twitter if you guys want to keep up to date with me, and of course give me a follow on Twitch if you guys want to catch some live gameplay. I'm hoping to do some community top 5 battles for New World, so if you guys have some clips that you want to send in for the top 5, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers, and they can give you better ping to your favorite games. Free to try for the first month. There's a link down below for you guys. And then last but certainly not least, a massive thank you and shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, I couldn't do this job, so thank you for allowing me to do it. Thank you everybody for tuning in and watching. As always, I hope that you guys enjoyed, and have a great night, everyone. I'll see you next time.